Yo, I'm gonna tell y'all like Jack Buck said a while back. Philly, go crazy, Philly, go crazy. Willie Epstein Jr. hashtag Brothers of Baseball Show. BGC Sports Network, man, live, loud, and in color. You already know what it is, man. We have got to wrap up game 3 and look ahead to game 4 as Philadelphia, the Phillies have taken a 2-1 lead on the strength of a 5-0 victory over the Houston Astros on Tuesday night. Now they lead the series 2-1. Is it time to hit the panic button? Well, we're going to get to that here in just a second. Before we move any further in this first segment, it is being brought to you by US Sailor. Whether you're a new customer or a current one, at US Sailor, you can choose any phone you want for free, especially 5G. Visit your nearest stores in Ada, Ardmore, Madill, Sulphur, and Hugo, Oklahoma. US Sailor, America's locally grown wireless network. Willie Epstein Jr., man, shaking back once again. It is on. The World Series is in full swing. As we mentioned in the opening statement, the Philadelphia Phillies, on the strength of a 5-0 win over Houston on Tuesday night, now have a 2-1 game or 2-1 lead going into game 4. That will be first pitch will be a little after 7 Central Time. And let's look back to game 3 before we actually get to game 4. So Lance McCullers Jr. was on the hill for the Houston Astros. And look, the whether or not he was tipping his pitches, I don't know. I'm not adept enough to say whether he was or he wasn't. I've been listening to talk radio all day long, and the consensus is that he was doing just that. So my question is this: how does it feel, Houston? How does it feel to be in a spot where you have now been victimized by alleged the picking up of pitches, because that was your calling card. Uh, that was the calling card that was in place not that long ago. So when I say that, I want to know, how does it feel? Like who was it? D'Angelo that sung that song? How does it feel? But anyway, before we actually get too far off track, and I'm already off track, that's what it is. And Lance McCullers Jr., he's been injured for the better part of the last couple years. He actually is a very, very, very good pitcher and was the real force in the stable of the rotation for the Houston Astros. So he was actually asked if he was pitching or tipping his pitches, and this is what he had to say.
I got beat, man. You know, they hit a lot of solid pitches, I thought. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, we got beat pretty bad, and I got beat up pretty bad. So, you know, I obviously wanted to pitch well and pitch much better than I did. But at the end of the day, you know, all I can do at this point is get ready to go for a potential Game 7.
Did they feel like they were sitting on that slider, or just
they just had good at bats? You know, I mean, I felt like I made some adjustments and went on a little bit of a decent run there toward the middle of the game, and then obviously they hit the 2 homers to before I got taken out. So you know, this is a game of adjustments, and they're a good team. I've said that before, and got beat today.
So he just basically denied that he was tipping his pitches. Now I watched the video with Todd Frazier, the Todd father, former Met, former Yankee, former everywhere, just about former Ranger, and he was talking about how the position of his glove in relation to after the windup or going into the windup, and how there were gaps and people were able to pick it up. Look, like I said, I'm not that adept to know what's going on with that. I just have to go by these experts' words, especially those that played in the league and in a high level. But in this particular game, I mean, Lance McCullers, the Astros gave up 5 home runs. They got shelled. Basically, they got shelled. And Ranger Suarez, I figured that McCullers Jr. would have had the edge in terms of who would have the advantage in terms of who was the better pitcher. But these Philadelphia Phillies bats are still smoking. They are still smoking because what they have done at home throughout this postseason, they are 6-0, And in some of the better pitchers in the National League, the starting pitchers, that is, at home, the opposing starting pitchers have an earned run average of over 10. I said it, over 10. Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, Mr. Baum, Bryce Harper, Eugenio's. I mean, these guys, their bats have been crazy on fire all postseason long. And that is what you need when you come into the World Series. When you come into any postseason round, for that matter, you need your bats to warm up and stay warm. Now, something else, too. I mean, with these two teams, of course, the Astros won 106 games in the regular season. Philadelphia won 87. That's a 19-game difference. That is the highest differential of wins between two World Series teams, I want to say, in 10 years. But the reason why the Phillies are here is because of their offense, not necessarily them just tearing the bases up or tearing the stats up in terms of average, but their ability to hit the long ball is crazy. And if you are a Philly fan, and I know people out there watching, by the way, thank you guys out there for checking us out on Facebook, as well as YouTube and Twitter, as well as Instagram, for all of the platforms. We thank you for that. If you're a Philadelphia Philly fan, you have to be feeling really, really good about where your team is at this point going into Game 4 a little bit later. The reason why I say that is because of this. You've already gotten to the ace, Verlander, once. Although in Game 2, Framber Valdez came back and he kind of shut you guys down. But in Game 3 with McCullers, like I said, I would have thought that he had the edge over Suarez. But you have Game 3, you have Game 4, and you have Game 5, all at Citizens Bank Ballpark. So now they have the opportunity to wrap this thing up in 6 games, or in 5 games rather, in front of their home fans. And the way that this momentum has swung, and even going back to the game 3 that was rained out from Monday. Remember, Game 1 was rained, or Game 3 was rained out. That was supposed to have been played on Monday, so they wound up playing it on Tuesday. I think, and I even said it in the last episode, that extra day off was going to benefit the Phillies because they are at home. They are in familiar territory. They don't really have to do much in a way of changing a routine, as opposed to a team that's on the road like the Astros are, obviously, in this case. So did it really have that much of an effect? I don't know if it did or if it didn't. But what I can say, ladies and gentlemen, is this, is that Phillies lineup, okay, in this game against the Astros, dude, it's not like they just tore it up. I mean, Bryce Harper hit his home run on the first pitch that he saw. Him and Mr. Baum had a conversation in the on-deck circle, and Bryce was like, yo, I think he's tipping his pitches. Look for this. I think we can get him. And they did. 5 home runs. Rhys Hoskins goes deep. Baum goes deep. Shoot, I think Castellanos even went deep. And then, of course, Harper went deep. But the thing is that in this particular game, again, in Game 3, the Phillies only had 7 hits. 7. They didn't leave a lot of people on base. They didn't do any of that. I mean, it's just what it was in terms of the stat line for the Phillies. 7 runs on 7 hits. I think 3 of those home runs were solo shots. A couple of them were with 2 outs. You know what I'm saying? Another one was with only with no outs. So if I'm not mistaken, the 5 home runs hit by the Phillies in that span of time in a game is the most in that time frame in a World Series game in the history of this game, in the history of Major League Baseball. That just goes to show you how much they were locked in. Now, now we flipped it to Game 4, where Aaron Nola who got beat against well, not really against Verlander, but he was facing off against Verlander in game 1. He gets the peel on the bump for this game. Now, Aaron Nola pitches way better at home than he does on the road. And here's his opportunity to make the same adjustments or make the necessary adjustments in order to keep the Astros bat at bay, to include Jose Altuve, who's batting an abysmal 156 in the postseason. He has stepped it up a little bit here in the World Series. I think he's batting like 303 or something to that effect. But this dude, who we have known to be a tremendous postseason and World Series warrior, is basically non-existent. And Dusty still has him hitting leadoff. So for this game, in game 4, for the Phillies to have an opportunity to take a commanding 3-1 lead with arguably their best pitcher on the bump, I don't like the chances for the Astros. Now, the Astros do have Christian Vasquez going. He's only started one of the postseason in his this year's postseason, and he performed very well in that game. I believe it was against the Seattle Mariners. But he has the stuff that can silence the bats, if you will, for the Phillies. And they're going to need all of that. Now, in game 3, I kind of was on my toes a little bit because the bullpen for the Phillies has shown us to be feast or famine to a certain degree. But they held it down. And again, it's not like it's not like the Astros. It's not like the Phillies were just killing the ball all over the place. 2 runs in the bottom of the first, 2 runs in the bottom of the second, 3 runs in the bottom of the fifth, and that was it. So there was still time enough for the Astros to get back into it, but it just was not to be. And check this out. I think it was actually Marsh that actually went deep as well. So Harper went deep, Schwarber went deep, Hoskins went deep, Marsh went deep, and Bohm went deep. Okay, so it's not like the Phillies lineup just dominated the pitching from the Astros. As a matter of fact, in game 3, there was only one hitter that got more than 2 hits in the game, and that was Mr. Marsh, 2 for 3. Everybody else was either 0 for or 1 for. 1 for, 0 for or 1 for. But I think the timing of those home runs, and again, you heard Lance McCullers Jr. talking about how they just were able to just get to him, and he got beat up pretty bad. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how all of that picking up pitches and all that works. All I know is that the Astros may have been a victim of their own undoing from years ago without banging on trash cans and allegedly having people mic'd up from the outfield and into the dugout or whatever the case was back then. But what I'm saying to you guys is this: Philadelphia Phillies, hashtag Red October, hashtag ring the bell. I think you guys are going to do it. And we're going to be back after game 4 for a wrap up of that, and also looking ahead to a potentially clinching game 5. So it's there for the taking. I believe if it gets to, if it does get to a game 7, Lance McCullers will be back on the bump for the Phillies. I'm sorry, for the Astros. If it gets to game 5, I do believe we'll see Verlander again, and it may be against Zach Wheeler. And that's all due to that one game because of the rainout on Monday. So I'm like, yo, the Philadelphia Phillies could very well be your 2022 world champions. I'm predicting in game 4, as we're winding down the first segment, I'm predicting in game 4 that the Phillies are going to do it. They are going to do it. Aaron Nola is going to make the necessary adjustments. I don't think Altuve is going to get warm at all at the plate. And I think those bats from the Phillies lineup, I think they continue to remain hot with timely hitting. They're going to make the necessary adjustments, probably the second round through the order after facing Vasquez, and they're gonna do it again in game 4 and go up 3-1 with the chance to wrap up the whole kit and caboodle, the whole shebang, the whole ball of wax in game 5 in front of their home fans at Citizens Bank Ballpark right there in South Philly. So we'll see what happens. Y'all come on back on the other side of the break. We got some great baseball talk. Willie Epting Jr., hashtag Brothers of Baseball, Big Game Christian Sports Network. Y'all come on back and holler at us.